Hello everyone and welcome to my retro media room, and today I decided I wanted to look at some Sega games. Now I say just Sega because we're talking Sega Genesis, 32X, Sega Saturn, Dreamcast. So I wanted to look at some games that are Sega related, well that are all Sega, that I feel deeply nostalgic with. Games that I played way back in the day, some of the earliest games I played on said consoles or whatever the case may be, that are always, you always know that game, or movie or music, but in this case games that really strike a deep nostalgic chord in you when you think about it, when you look at the cover, when you see gameplay, whatever the case. All right, so to start with, I want to take a peek at Aladdin here, which this is our original copy that I got originally back in the day. And it's funny because this one of those good examples of ports that, this version on the Sega Genesis, and there's always there's always the debate which is better, the Super Nintendo version or the Sega Genesis version, because they're completely different games. Because this one's from Virgin Games and Disney software, and Disney actually had a hand in the animation in this. But of course, it's got a black and white booklet. But the Super Nintendo version was developed in Japan by Capcom. And funny enough, and we'll bring it out one of these days too, but it was the Super Nintendo version was directed by Shinji Mikami, the creator of Resident Evil. Funny enough. But, so yeah, Aladdin is very nostalgic to me, because even though it was a tough game and I never beat it as a kid, but I played it quite a bit. It reminds me of being in my older brother's room on the bigger TV, trying to play it and beat it. He would try to play it and beat it. He was a good gamer back in the day. He used to beat like Punch Out and Russian Attack and Metroid, but he wasn't able to even beat this, I don't think. Super Nintendo version's easier. This is a harder game. All right, so that's Aladdin. And the next game is Royal Rumble. This game is super nostalgic to me. I played the ever-living daylights out of it because I grew up with WWF. Did I say... Well, I said Royal Rumble. WWF Royal Rumble. And back when it was WWF, all this era, I grew up with that. Always loved it. And I played the ever-living daylights out of this for sure. Very nostalgic. There's a Super Nintendo version, and I have it, but this is the version I'm more familiar with, the one I played extensively, and loved this game back in, it's a solid wrestling game. This engine that they used for it was actually a really good engine, really good mechanics, and the Sega Genesis version is very nostalgic to me. It's a personal favorite. And lastly here for the Genesis, that is, we have Road Rash 2, which is arguably my favorite Genesis game of all time. Funny enough, when I first played this, it was at a family friend's house. I didn't know it existed. I went to his, he fired it up on his console. It was before I had a Genesis, and I was just a little kid, and I just remember laughing so hard when whenever the first time I ever saw them crash in the game, where you hit anything or climb and you go, whoa, and you completely wreck in the game, and beating each other up with bats and chains and everything. So I'd never seen anything like it before. Fell in love with it instantly as a kid, and then throughout the then eventually down the road I got my own copy. I didn't have it originally. I just rented it as a kid, but this one has everything in it. It has like all the goodies. By the way, this little yellow piece right here was just an EA thing. It has no functionality whatsoever. It was just kind of their signature thing. And here's a colored booklet, poster, and register. So this is a good complete copy here. So yeah, Road Rash, even though I have all three, and I've played all of them, but by far 2 is my favorite. 2 is my personal favorite of the entire series. I love the series as a whole, but 2 is my favorite. Absolutely love this game. It is an absolute Sega Genesis gem. All right, and now we're gonna take a look at some 32X here. All right, next up here we have Virtua Fighter on the 32X. So I'm only showing one game for the 32X here because I had a few games, rented a couple games. Like I had Star Wars along with this at one point. Funny enough, I got rid of it and then got it back again for my collection later. This, on the other hand, this case is a custom case because the original case was completely cardboard. But the cartridge and booklet are my originals that I've had since I was a kid. So what the thing is, I remember, I'm almost certain that I'm very, very sure that I picked up a 32X and I've got it boxed over here in my display. I got it at a Kmart. It was kind of I remember it being open box. It wasn't totally complete brand new. It was like an open box copy. And we got it for like, not even kidding, like 30, 40 bucks. And it was it's an expensive peripheral. And we got it for 30, 40 bucks because it was on clearance and it was open box because they couldn't get rid of them. So, and then I got this along with it, and Virtual Fighter is near dear to my heart because I played Virtual Fighter. The first time I ever saw Virtual Fighter was in the arcade, and it blew my absolute mind when I was a little kid. Never seen a 3D fighting game before because I've been playing Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, I was familiar with fighting games, but up to that point pretty well, especially Street Fighter 2. That was like, my deepest childhood. But Virtual Fighter, when I saw it for the first time, that was a game changer. Before, so that was, and then when I saw this, I was like, oh well, it's the arcade, it's Virtual Fighter. I want to play it at home, and there's a Genesis version which is 2D, but that's Virtual Fighter 2 on the Genesis, but that came out after this. But I think if I remember right, but so I definitely was keen to get it, played it, and yeah, it's obviously pretty rough compared to the arcade original, of course, but it does an admirable job of, I would argue this is the best game on the 32X. I would argue that. Played the daylights out of it. Really, really enjoyed it. And it's such a classic because there's other ways to play it. And, there's a Saturn version. There's a current version on, I think it's the current Virtual Fighter. You can go and get a kind of a weird spin on this and such and such and such. But in terms of the version I grew up playing, it was this right here on the 32X. All right, well, next we'll take a look at some Sega Saturn. All right, to start with here, we'll look at some Shinobi Legends. So here's the funny thing about this game. I never owned it until a while, like a few years ago when I got this copy, right? And I didn't own it. I never owned it. Never owned it. Never really played it extensively. Never had a Saturn originally. I didn't get a Saturn until I was collecting later on in years, or years down the road. So I just wanted one, but wasn't able to get one. I had a PlayStation and 64, never had a Saturn. So, but the thing was, I played this, and this was pretty expensive. This was definitely expensive to get this copy here. So I was fortunate. I got it off of somebody for reasonable at the time. But I played. This was the first time I ever touched a Saturn in my life. It was at a Toys R Us store. It was on demo. It was in a demo case, and I played. And this was on there with the controller attached. And so this is the first time I ever looked at or played a Sega Saturn in my life. I was at a Toys R Us, and this was what they had playing in it. And of course, I was like, "Oh my, this is so cool!" It was, it was violent. It was bloody. You like cut the ninjas in half, and Saturn was very, it was amazing at 2D graphics, so it had really nice animation for the time, and so, so Shinobi is, and it is digitized, so that's a funny thing about it too. So it's a funny one for me because that one memory gives me nostalgia for the experience that I got from that. And in a similar case with this, the next game here, Nights into Dreams. So once again, because I didn't have a Saturn, and I wasn't ever able to own it or play it, but I briefly played the demo once again. It was either in a Target or Walmart. They had one set up on the set when the Saturn was new and demoed in stores and stuff. And I remember thinking, me and my sister were like, this looks so cool. Just was never able to play it. So of course, here's the just the big box with the controller. It's just a standard jewel case. So for me, that memory of seeing it in the store and being excited to play it for the, being excited to wanting to play it, playing the demo in the store, and of course the inside here actually has the full, which really, it's funny, you can tell that this was what was the prelude to the Dreamcast controller. You can tell. So you can clearly tell this is a prelude to that. All right. So now we'll move on to some Dreamcast real quick. All right, now to finish out, we'll look at some Dreamcast. And so right here, we have Sonic Adventure. So I got the Dreamcast from that same Toys R Us that I played the Sega Saturn at when I was younger. I got the Dreamcast on launch day of 9/9 of '99, and got Final Fantasy VIII because they came out the same time. And got the Dreamcast. I believe at least this and Soul Calibur, which we'll also take a peek at. And they were launch titles on it, and the demo disc that came with it, and was just absolutely blown away. Loved the Dreamcast. It was a phenomenal launch. Great titles. This is my personal. This is gonna sound weird, but this is my personal favorite Sonic because it was the one. It was really the first Sonic that I truly got attached to. Because I played the other Sonics because I had a Sega Genesis. I liked the Genesis, but I didn't. I wasn't as attached to the Genesis as Super Nintendo. I did appreciate it though, and I had a few of the Sonics, but especially Sonic Pinball. That was actually the first Sonic I had was Sonic Pinball. But Sonic Adventure I actually played and beat. Loved it. The soundtrack's amazing. The graphics were phenomenal at the time. There's several maps in it that are really fantastic maps, and it's great. Like it's not perfect. It's got some issues like camera problems and this and that, but it is for me it's a personal late '90s classic and a good launch title. Now, now an even better game than this, though, as I showed here a second ago, was Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur, you could if I had to pick, like what if you have to pick one fighting game to be the greatest fighting game ever made, I would have this up as a candidate. I absolutely love this game. I mean, you talk about an incredible launch title. Playing Soul Calibur. Yeah, you know what? I think we looked at this either. I got that too with the fishing pole. But so yeah, Soul Calibur played the absolute snot out of it and was good at it. I can still fire it up. Like right now, I fired it up on my Xbox Series X, the 360 or the 360 version that I can play backwards compatible. And it plays incredible. I can fire it up on there and just start whomping right off because it's like muscle memory to me. I love this game. It's people favor the second one. I understand why, especially when you're playing Link in the GameCube version, or I had Spawn on the Xbox version originally. I have all of them now, but this is the one that and because I originally started with Soul Blade on and. If you all say in the comments you want me to, I can do a Soul Calibur series thing, like at least all the ones I have. I have all the originals and some of the modern ones. Because I've always loved the Soul Blade. Because it was originally Soul Edge in the arcade, and then it became Soul Blade when it came out on PlayStation 1. Loved that game. I played the crap out of it, and then got this and was just absolutely blown away. Incredible fighting game, amazing launch title. You could argue it's a perfect game in terms of fighting games. All right, well, just wanted to share some memories and nostalgia with some Sega. I certainly want to do. If y'all like this, I might do some more like this where I kind of focus on just memories, childhood nostalgia, if you can relate, or if it'll maybe make you remember some of your childhood stuff, especially like the demos in stores, like at Walmart or Target or even Kmart. Back when I was a kid, that was how we first got to see and play games, other than renting them, was playing them in stores when they first came out. So I'll go into more of that with some of these other nostalgic titles, like in the 64 and stuff. So, all right, thanks for watching. I hope you like it and have a good day.